Welcome back. I am so excited today to be here with Ernest Chamblee. He is a fellow Army veteran and a real estate agent and a veteran advocate, which before I pushed record, he just like completely lit up when he was talking about veteran advocacy. So I can't wait to hear more about this. But first, did I pronounce your last name right? Because I totally did
You
not.
you totally did. So it's
Oh,
originally pronounced Chamblee, but the way it's spelled, a lot of people say Chamblee. So in the
I like
military, it
Chamblee.
definitely was Chamblee.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for what you do, giving a very specific community a voice. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, I appreciate that. That's the mission I'm on. So here we
Absolutely.
are. We're all ears. We're waiting to hear a little bit about you, Ernest. Like, where you come from, like whatever you want to tell us, whether it's all the way back or just kind of where things kind of start and where it's taken you to now.
Sure. And thank you for that. And please feel free to chime in because I can get to rambling. But I like to take my veteran perspective all the way back, simply because my grandfather retired Air Force, and he's almost about to retire from the post office as a postmaster. My father did 4 years in the Air Force, wasn't really his cup of tea. And my mother did 24 years in the Army. And my favorite thing about that
Man.
is we ended up serving um, as junior officers together, and there's some story to that. So I got introduced to the military really early in my life. I remember I was 6 years old flying unaccompanied minor from Germany, and my mom was stationed in Butzbach, um, to New York where my dad was still living because they divorced when I was 2. So I did the back and forth thing really well. My mom was in Sicily. She got some really cool duty stations, right? But she also was in Louisiana, Clarksville, Fort Campbell. So we had to go to some different places, but each year I'd fly back and forth, do a school year here, school year there. And as a military brat, I'm not the only one who's experienced that. You learn to adapt to the environments that you're in, but you never really get that sense of community that
Hmm.
is um, natural when so and so's parent played at the same high school, or they've been
Right.
in the same business and that family business is 3 generations deep. We feel like we miss out on some of that. And what I'll talk about at the end of this is being in the military is a lot more wide than it is deep, but you can still have those relationships pay off as mutual benefits for everyone. So my military career, as a military brat, my mom made me promise never to enlist in the military, right? Through her career, from private to eventually E7, she missed graduation. She missed years of school. She deployed to Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq. I have 4 little sisters, so she missed some of their greatest years as well. Also brought us together. So there's the positive side of it. But I honor my mom, right? So I told her, I promise you, mom, I'll never enlist. So when I went to college, I joined ROTC and commissioned as an officer in the Army. So I kept my word, but I still I still paid off my desire to serve. And that stems from in seventh grade, I was uh, in New York, Queens, and I could see the aftermath of the Twin Towers hitting. My father, who actually drove to the city to assist with just anything he could, he said he was really just moving rubble. That part of my life was so life changing that I knew I was going to serve in some capacity. But my mother had given me the directive not to. So I did commission. Right before I commissioned, let's take that back a little bit. So my mom, I pinned her E7, and I was back visiting for her ceremony, and she was doing some drill and ceremony because she had been a drill sergeant. She was on the trail when I was in high school, and she's like, let's do some drill ceremony, cadet. So she's running me through some stuff, and she's laughing at me like I'm embarrassed at this point. And she tells me, I will never salute you. And I thought she was joking, and she meant it. So she went to OCS, went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, put on her butter bar 2 months before I graduated college. Even though she went the associate's route and she got her bachelor's eventually, she did commission 2 months before I did, and I never saluted her. Actually, when she pinned captain, I hadn't I was still wearing first lieutenant. and I had to salute her. So that story I love because it impacts not just my life, but my sister's life, my mother's life, the way her military trajectory went. Now, she always says that if she would have stayed enlisted, she might have been like Sergeant Major of the Engineer Corps, but hindsight's 2020 and we can't change it. With that being said, I did commission into the military. I was an intelligence officer. I was an asset for NSA Hawaii for a little bit. When all that Snowden stuff happened, he wasn't at my facility yet, but he was on the way. We went on lockdown. You couldn't go to the gym or anything. It was a really interesting experience. Got to do some really cool stuff out of Fort Bragg with some task force stuff, life-changing stuff. I eventually did get out of the military in 2015. I resigned my commission and purchased a franchise. I ended up operating 3 franchises, 2 Rocky Mountain chocolate factories and 1 Aspen Leaf frozen yogurt. They're in Missouri and 1 in Northern Virginia. And this is where I started learning my civilian lessons. And a big reason I went into franchising is because as soldiers, we learn systems, right? Whether it's the 30, 60, 90 as an HR professional or the critical thinking standards for an intelligence professional, we have our systems. For me, and I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, I'm huge on veterans starting their own business because we have the skills, talents, and abilities to do so. I wanted to systemize business and I wanted, franchises are expensive. If anybody's out there in franchising, you know that it costs money to get into. Well, those snack franchises are a step down. They're mom and pop kind of concept. So you have to be in them or at least get a few of them working together. So I did that. Really felt like the military had prepared me way more than I had anticipated. So I did get into the real estate world. My then partner and I were doing some real estate deals in Northern Virginia. She's my wife now. We did get married in 2021. And we were here in Colorado.
Fraternization?
Maybe 6 years ago. I love it. My business partner and I did the real estate thing, and it forced me to, not forced, it propelled me to get my real estate license because it just gave me access to different properties. So it was a little bit of a selfish reason I got my real estate license, but it's turned into me helping family members, friends navigate what has turned into a real estate market no one probably could have ever imagined. So that's what I do. I'm not one of those realtors who's look at me, but I am one who studies his craft. And my goal is to buy myself more properties throughout my life. So it's a win-win because I can help people. But the ultimate goal is becoming a master of my craft, which has become real estate. So that's kind of where it led me to like Colorado. My wife and I decided to plant. Sorry, I'm rambling. Like I told you I would.
I'm digging it. Keep going.
I want to get to how we landed here. So my wife went to school we both went to school in Missouri. She was in Kansas City. I had gone to Northern Virginia for my 3rd franchise. And we were saying, where do we want to move? We didn't want to be in Northern Virginia. Kansas City was comfortable, but neither of us really wanted to go back, if that made sense. And like I said, my mother, who had retired from the military, was down in Fountain, Colorado. So we drove to Kansas City. We packed up our little apartment and we said, whatever can't fit in the truck, we're not bringing with us. Drive down to Kansas City. We stopped. She actually sold her car the day before. We were like, life-changing, quarter-life crisis is what I called it. So we head down, we make a stop in Kansas City, we pick up something to eat, and it just doesn't feel right. We literally keep driving. Just drive through Kansas, get to Colorado. On the way there, she calls where we ended up living for the first 2 years we were here. We planted, and as I planted, I did go to University of Colorado here in Colorado Springs. I finished with my MBA May of 2021. I've got to do some really cool things in the community because of real estate, being able to fund some of my passion projects. I developed a program here called LEAD, Leadership, Effectiveness, and Diversity. And I did that for United Way. It was a program sponsored by Kaiser Permanente. And we take local leaders and we build them up to serve on nonprofit boards or in leadership positions within the community. So that was a brainchild that just kind of came from what was going on in the climate during the pandemic and giving leaders access to tools and resources to be the voice in the community where they might have felt marginalized before. And then I'll wrap it up with this, Jennifer, because while I was getting my MBA, I decided to work with Mount Carmel, doing some really cool stuff, mainly transition and employment for veterans. But it showed me that there's a huge gap. And don't get me wrong, ACAP going to SFL TAP, great. I see the Army making improvements, the military making improvements, but there's this fear is not the term I use anymore, but this disconnect of how valuable our skills we've gained, our experiences we have inside of that uniform, that we think coming out of it that all those skills stay there. But just because there's no acronym in the civilian world to say what you did or what your skill set is, doesn't mean you're not massively valuable. So working with Mount Carmel, I was able to help, and I'm still able to help veterans, whether they're starting their own business or they just want to figure out how to get ready for an interview or don't have the right attire. We have a civvies closet where they can get discounted and sometimes free, depending on the situation, clothing. So uh, the reason I think I fell in love with helping veterans is because when I left the military, I thought I could do it all by myself, the franchising, the business. And I skipped everything that would have made my life just that much easier. And in the civilian world, that much easier usually means that much revenue or that much more time with your family. And if I can help someone skip some of those bad steps, I'm all for it. So,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, that's how I got to who I am today.
So interesting. I know, everyone has obviously a completely different story, but I'm sure you are in a very small percentage of people who like served alongside your mother. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. And she is a beast. Talk about, I will never salute you. And then goes and like, as a matter of fact, I'm about to commission here and you're going to salute me, son.
Exactly.
I dig it.
Exactly. I love
And
it.
I also like how spontaneous you and your wife are. Like, I feel like my husband and I would hope that we would do the same thing, look around and like, well, guess we'll keep our own going. So
It
that is
just,
super
it was a
cool.
feeling, and we call it young and dumb, but another thing, we're pregnant now. So we found that out recently, and it was the right call because we have more space here. This is when you wake up and you're driving and you just see a snow-capped mountain, it's really hard to have a bad day. So
Right. And doing, first of all, congratulations. That's so exciting. And like doing what you love and that passion, like that that just makes the day even better. So
absolutely.
I really I dig that you are helping other leaders to build, in the lead program that you mentioned.
Mhm.
That is incredible to put your service and the skills that you've gained to help other leaders. And you're absolutely right. Like when we step out of like the military, all of these skills, you don't really think about them. And then it does take some time for you to realize just, well, for me, it did just
Yeah.
how bad you are. and
And own
and
it. Exactly.
yeah, and like, whoa, like I'm actually a beast over here. And so it reminds me, you talking about helping other people to be more successful, and like with the veterans, like helping them to navigate those transitions and whatnot. It reminds me of a quote I read in a book called Struggle Well, Thriving in the Aftermath of Trauma. It's a book
Okay.
I learned a lot about post traumatic growth from. And they describe in there, I love it. I mentioned this before. They describe in there that the pinnacle of success is not like when you've made it to the top of the mountain, making six figures and like, boom, I made it at life. It's the pinnacle of success, and all that self fulfillment comes when you actually turn right around and go down the mountain to help
Mm,
someone else. And
mm.
that sounds a lot like what you are doing to give back to people. And that's incredible. Your son or daughter is going to have amazing parent. I know it's crazy, right? To
Dang,
think it's
it's
crazy.
and that's and we can even talk about that because I'm so excited. But to your point, and I think that when I get to introduce myself or we get to talking, I'm obviously going over the highlights, right?
Mhm,
But it took a lot of failures
mhm,
of not knowing who I was because I kind of condensed franchising to real estate, but there's a very dark downward spiral where I didn't go to the VSO. We talked about a veteran
mhm,
who hadn't gone to go get a rating for disability, did 12 years in and been out 12 years and
mhm,
doesn't think that they are just that whole thing. So dealing with that as a veteran, as I got either good pay or I got to go to every duty station I wanted to, or I made the best friends ever, I don't want to go deal with those things, or I don't think I'm worthy of those things. So it took me sliding down, depression,
Mhm.
being diagnosed with certain post-traumatic stress scenarios where I had no idea that that loss could impact me in this way.
Right.
And we don't know that until we go get help. And
Mhm.
when I go and got professional help, I was able to turn around and say, okay, not everyone I'm going to turn around is going to need a therapist, but more than likely, if they're a veteran, I'm probably going to recommend that. But they do have the ability to struggle with confidence because they're going through an identity crisis. They do have the ability to struggle with finances because the first and 15th might look a little different now. So being able to help in that capacity was something I had to get right and then turn around and help. So I completely agree with you. Getting to the top of the mountaintop usually means there's a few miles of valleys on the way.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, now I'm just, and I'm not saying I'm at the top of the mountaintop. I'm climbing and I'm yelling back, "You can do it! You
Yeah.
can do it!"
You
So,
can do it.
oh, that's perfect.
uh, that is that's incredible. And I love that. One of the things that I feel for myself is, I don't know if you keep in contact with anyone that you do you keep in contact with anyone you served with?
Absolutely. Dre, who was one of my pilots, an Apache pilot, excuse me, UH-60 pilot, he was in my wedding. He was one of my
Awesome.
groomsmen. He's at the tail. So he later in life, but still was, went to war together. That
Absolutely.
means something.
And when I'm around those people, like, it is the best connections, the best relationship, the best time. And so the fact that you get to be around that population, helping them and to help them thrive and to see, to build their confidence. I'm kind of peanut butter and jelly. Like, that is so cool because you get to be around that population that I feel like just lights my soul up. And so
Mm-mm.
I can just tell that it does you as well. So that is fantastic.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, go for it.
When you're talking about that, and I'll share an example. I said Mount Carmel. That's a local service for me, but like Team Red, White, and Blue, the fitness challenges and stuff like that. What programs or organizations have you found kind of on a national or global level that most veterans should tap into? Whether it's a Facebook group or a local chapter that they might be able to look into. What's some good resources that you have found from like talking to other veterans and who have come out of some of the traumas?
That's a good question. Way to go. Like, you're like co-host over here. This is awesome. Um, so I am in the I'm a member of the VFW, the American
Nice.
Legion. I'm a member of the Veterans of Log-Based Sites, which is a non-for-profit that me and my battles that served together and on a deployment in 2004, we formed our own, and we've been
Wow.
trying to compile a list of resources to be able to tell other people about. But as far as my own experience, I would say Lone Survivor Foundation. I had
Mm.
gone to a retreat, and it was incredible. And they also offer like virtual counseling. Once the Rona started, I tapped into Wounded Warrior Project, and well, I joined. Like, well, I didn't join until then.
Wow.
I've been back for 18 years, but didn't join until like 2 years ago. And I started tapping into, they have so many virtual meetings on Wounded Warrior Project where, like,
Okay.
and there's such a plethora. Like, you can sign up for an art class, and if you get into it before other people do, they send you the paints, they send you the the brushes, the
I think I've heard of
canvases.
that.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
they do
like
all
nice stuff
kinds.
too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then they'll do ones where it's just like coffee and conversation,
Okay.
or and then they'll have smaller groups, like, a women's one. They do like Call of Duty. Like, so if you just want to game it up with a bunch of veterans, you join this Zoom call, put the phone next to you, and you all get on the same Call of Duty game, just talking trash on the phone. There's cooking class. So I would
Really? Okay.
say,
Wonderful. Yeah.
definitely those two have been, from my own experience, have tapped into those. But
Okay.
I have a list that I am working on and wanting to get up on our Veterans of Log-Based Sites website, so it's
Okay.
available to other people. How about you, other than Mount Carmel?
Well, that's a really good one, and I won't dive too much into these because I know that Everyone has their local stuff that they're really into, but I do want to share one that I didn't think that I would. And even in the, so everyone has lost someone, and even if you haven't lost them in the military, you have lost someone. But this program, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, it's called TAPS. Um, oh my goodness, it is a program where, and you don't have to be a military member to sponsor or to mentor, but
Mm-hmm.
they have these things called good grief camps. And as a military person, they ask you to come out, first responders, absolutely. But the students and the mentees that come to these good grief camps from all over have lost someone, whether it's a service member, a first responder. Most times it's service members through war. I mean, that's what this
Mm-hmm.
focus is. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. So you get a blue shirt if you're a mentor, you get a red shirt if you're a mentee. Purple shirts, I'm just describing this experience, where someone who lost someone, loved the program so much, became a mentor at these good grief camps. And 50-60% of these people are dealing with soldier and sailor and marine and airman suicide. And it's the saddest but most fulfilling, because you'll be sitting there and these kids are just crying on each other, and they'll say, you remind me of my Uncle Bob who I lost, or my Uncle Jim used to say that all the time, or my Aunt so and so was this way. And so TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. If you're not a military mentor, become one. They do good grief camps. It's regional. It's not a huge program, so it's regional. You might have to drive somewhere. Um, if you're traveling, sometimes they will cover your hotel. It's If you're local, just go. It's amazing, and you get to
That
just
is
see.
incredible.
Yeah, so that's one of the, and that's when it was 2018 when I went to one of these, and I really like opened up my heart and said, man, there's not only veterans out here that need my help, but there's families who don't even have their veterans. What do I have to complain about? So
Right.
that was a big one for me.
Ooh, that is big. It made my eyeballs sweat. I wrote it down. I'm gonna
Taps.
definitely be checking
Sure.
into it. That's rad. Well, dang. Okay, so I typically like to ask people, um, what do you do for your own self-care? We all know that, you gotta be able to, you gotta help yourself before you help other people.
Mm,
You gotta be in a good space, in a good mindset. So what helps to get you there? What do you do for Ernest
sure.
Chamblee?
Ooh, thank you. Um, that's a really good point. And everyone, veteran or not, take your time, right? And for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably gonna go away here soon. We're doing May. But it's that early morning. So I do have four little sisters, like I said, and I came early in my mom's life. They came when they, were planned. So I've had little sisters. My oldest or closest to me is 26, and my youngest from me turns 13 this summer. Yeah, turns
Mm-hmm.
13 this summer. So pretty big gap. And I knew that, and maybe it was high school that did this for me. When I was in high school, my school started earlier, so they were still asleep when I got up. So that alone time in the morning. And for me, it's just a pretty consistent routine. I have a little vision sheet, and it's a standard. I actually had to do it right here in my little office area. And it's trying my best to stick to an AM routine where I am a believer. So I read my Bible, I meditate, I like to use a daily journal, not as often as I probably should.
Mm-hmm.
And then get started with my water, H2O right away, and then try to get my fitness worked out in that first 2 hours of the day. If I don't, um, I'm sluggish.
Mm-hmm.
If it, and that's something I thank the military for, because being able to get that AM workout, even if it's just a walk, really gets the blood pumping. So for me, it's just that 45 minute to hour and 15 routine, and then straight into
Everything. You
fitness.
just like checked off all these awesome boxes like meditation, spirituality, journaling, exercise.
Well,
What else
remember,
is
I
there?
don't have I don't have children yet, so, and and I talk to people who are either getting out of the military and they've lived a much more seasoned life than I have at this point, and that's the biggest challenge. So sometimes I tell them it's that sitting in the car, before
Hmm.
you drive to work, or before you get
Right.
home. Don't even open the garage. Stop in the driveway. Listen to that
Absolutely.
book or that breathing. But yeah, so, and don't get me wrong, I miss days, and when I miss weeks, that's when I get hangry. My life gets hangry if
Hmm.
I miss weeks of that routine.
Yes. And I know for myself, you had said you started with reading your Bible. Like if I don't read my devotion, like it'll throw my day off, kind of like you said,
Mhm.
exercise does. And I can tell the effect on me. And so although you are about to be, losing sleep, you'll still be up early in the morning. So there's that. That's a
I just want to be
positive.
happy about it.
But there will come a season where, like, for myself, like my youngest is 4,
Okay.
and through the personal development and writing my first novel over this last year.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. I In all that, I found a lot more of myself again, and now I've made it a
Mm.
priority to like get back to myself. So it might be a while, Ernest, but that season will come back, buddy. No,
Okay, thank you. See, I
I
see
hope.
you at the mountaintop. I'm coming. Keep going.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Last thing I love, 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 love to hear from people is what are your hopes and dreams from here? Like if you just had anything at your fingertips, if you could just have your wildest,
Sure.
and it doesn't even have to be that wild. It could just be like
Sure. I like
sleep.
to
I
dream
want
big
sleep.
though. I'm sure that's going to be it in a little bit. Well, Jennifer, so like I said, I have 4 little sisters, and I'll bring that up all the time because anytime I need to take a knee, right? First of all, I look back and say, my mom has done this. So she's not only paved the way and said that it's possible, she's given me a reason to continue. And then when I look back, um, I have 4 beautiful, wicked smart sisters, and um, I know every time I make a decision, they're going to see that outcome. So, not that I make decisions for them, and of course I will because they're family, but I make decisions with them in mind. So, I have called my mission, and because of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, I have put my life mission into 10 words, and it's to inspire generations by leading people to be purposeful and healthy. So for me to do that, um, being the best version of myself extrapolated over a lifetime. And the way I see that is making sure that success in my book is determined by the people that are closest to me. So Jim Rohn often says, become a millionaire, not for the $1,000,000, but the man you become. Uh, I know for a fact the finances will come now that I have become attractive to money. I just want to never lose sight of the man I'm supposed to be for the people that look up to me. Because for me, success is when those people that I love the most respect me the most. So if I can accomplish that, I think that that's success in my book.
Oh, there it goes again.
You're
That
too.
was insane. Like that was insane. I can't even process it to write it down. I'm just gonna, when I go back, and I always listen to these like 5 more times before I air them because I really want to just hear the whole story again.
Sure,
But
sure.
that was a drop the mic answer right there. That
You're
was
too kind.
incredible. That was incredible. Amazing, amazing. Anything else like super amazing we should know about before we bid you farewell?
No, and if you're listening to this episode, that means you need to go back and listen to some more if you haven't, and stay tuned for the future ones because when I got in contact with Jennifer, I went back and listened. And not only do I get to hear who Jennifer is through each episode because she's a great host, there's some amazing stories back there.
There is.
And there's some that were way over my head or I couldn't connect with at all. And then there were some where it's like, that's me. I know that is me.
Yeah.
So if this one doesn't resonate with you and you stuck through this far, go check the other ones out because I'm almost guaranteed they will.
Oh, you're so badass. Thank
We
you
are.
so much for coming on, and thanks for coming to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Thank you.